Hello and good evening, and welcome to The Truth Behind the Truth.
Behind the truth.
Yes, indeed. We're hoping everybody is having a great evening thus far, and want to welcome you to our family. You know, we got that red cup going already. You know what?
That's how you started off. That's how you started off.
Right? Want to welcome our Facebook family, our YouTube family, and our Instagram family to us tonight. Definitely, we're going to have a great show. Want to remind you of all of our products. Definitely go to The Truth Behind Truth. Get your T-shirts, guys. Get your T-shirts. Definitely get your T-shirts. Go to Mr. Harold Fall's page. Order that book, I Am Enough, and 21 ways to get fat from fruit. Fruit.
Not fat.
21 days to eat fruit and get right. Okay. Harold, give us your website again. I'm sorry. I always forget the website.
It's www. I guess you don't have to say www anymore. That just tells you how old I am. It's thegoodlivingnow.com.
Thegoodlivingnow. Gotcha. Yes, guys. So we are so excited about tonight. We have a wonderful guest that's going to be with us, and we want to send regards to Ian Stiles today. He was supposed to be with us tonight, but he's battling a personal issue, and we want some warm thoughts to his, in his direction, and make sure that everything is okay. But he does send his regard, and he will be back with us on another future show. So he's still excited to be a part of The Truth Behind the Truth. So we want to send regards to his direction, as well.
Yeah. And the same thing with Tyler. Tyler is still in from the previous show.
Yes.
Tyler Tate. He's in school, so we're wishing him the best with that, because I know school education is important.
Yes.
At this point in our lives, people are still trying to get that degree, and bless those at this moment during the COVID situation. It's kind of hard.
Absolutely.
Even at this moment, I'm working on a certification.
Right.
So it ain't easy, but we working towards that goal. Thank you, Jesus.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, we have a great guest tonight that's going to be with us tonight. Mr. Jared Simpson is going to be with us tonight, and it is going to be such a great show. He's going to bring some powerful information to us, and then his perspective on dealing with men. Yes. And he's did a seminar on that as well. So we are once again blessed to have him, or a privilege to have him to be a part. Took time out of his busy schedule to be with us. So we'll be bringing him to the light in just a minute. Yes. Invite him out. So guys, how was your week? Harold, how was your week?
It was pretty good. It was kind of gray, like my beard, and I'm wearing all gray. Got my gray shirt on and rocking my gray. So we're embracing it. I'm embracing it.
Embrace the gray.
Yeah. All right, I hear you. Mr. Parnell, how was your week, sir?
It was all right. It was good. I'm in rehearsal for a radio play.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Week. Yeah. So I'm really excited about that. It's like, even though COVID has shut down live theater, we still find ways to still get out here and do some, create some art.
Gotcha.
Wow.
That is so nostalgic. You don't hear a lot about radio dramas and radio plays anymore. That was a big thing back in the 30s and 40s and 50s.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't know why people stopped doing that. I think because of podcasts now shows. Is it on a podcast or is it on a regular radio?
I think they're going to do like a podcast with it.
Okay.
So, television killed the radio star.
Right.
So
exactly.
I can see you. I don't want to hear you. Now I can actually see what's going on.
Exactly.
Honestly, we need to go back to that, because some of these video stars have cut it out. Vocalists staying on point.
Well, that is good. I am really glad to hear that. Definitely. So, without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get our wonderful guest in tonight, and then we will start a discussion tonight as we bring men have voices to a close of this particular portion of our conversations, and moving on to next week, guys. I'm telling you, PSTD of religion kicks off. Man, that's going to be a show. A series of shows that is just going to be words can't even describe how that's going to be. We're going to be really digging in, stirring up some pots. Okay,
stirring up some pots, huh?
I got a confirmation from a great, I'm going to say a minister tonight that's going to be a part of one of the shows that's going to be sharing, in that as well. But anyway, we'll dig into that a little bit later. Okay,
right.
So bring it to the show for the first time, and hope for many, many more times thereafter. Mr. Jared Simpson. Yeah.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi there.
Hello. And
y'all are like a whole lot of joy going on. I've been watching from backstage, and y'all are just having a good time. I'm like, put me in, coach.
Yeah.
Come on in.
Fun.
Come on in.
Red Solo cup. I want to know what's in the red Solo cup.
See,
this is just my hot tea because I gotta take care of my.
Yeah.
Yeah. Take care of that
You know, I'm
instrument
from
out.
New Orleans, so our red Solo cups don't have hot tea in it. We have other stuff.
say we truly enjoy ourselves in New Orleans in terms of
Yes, indeed.
That's joy juice. You got that joy juice.
Exactly. Well, we are truly honored to have you part of the show tonight, and we are certainly wanted to dig in to hear what you've got to say about encouraging these men to do better, you know, and from your perspective, you know, in that, and we'll dig into that in our second half a little bit more, you know, and give you the spotlight and kind of share. We're going to throw some good stuff at you just to make things have fun, you know, and express the way that you need to. Okay, so this is an open forum, you know. At the end of the day. So digging in tonight, guys. Okay, we said that, you know, at the conclusion of last week's show that we were going to talk about how the church has affected men. Okay, so oh my gosh, that's just an open window in terms of either responsibilities, how I hate to say Christianity, but you know, typically that's kind of the mainstream of what has affected a lot of us in terms of our thought patterns and the things that we do things. So let's just say that we'll start from the Christian perspective, and of course we can invite other opportunities of, you know, of religious perspective. But we want to see how that formulates men, how it has separated us from ideas, and how it can actually, you know, be redirected, you know, in a way that it can prosperous and better ideas, you know, in terms of moving forward. So I'm open, Parnell, if you want to, you know, take the first point about that or whatever, how you feel.
Oh, don't throw me to the wolves.
You look like you're ready.
Well, I mean, it's a very interesting, I mean, I know we've touched on it a couple times before. I think I've talked about last week with the whole thing with Adam and Eve and that whole thing about Eve being created from Adam's side to rule with him as opposed to being under him and being ruled by him. Yes. So I think as society has changed and gender roles and stuff have changed, and I shouldn't say changed, have evolved, have grown. So it's no longer a thing where women are the property of first their fathers and then their husbands, right? You know, that are full human beings with their own dreams and desires of their own and have fought for those rights to have them. Exactly. And it's a very interesting thing because, you know, like, well, the traditional, like, well, traditions change as society evolves. Right. You know, once upon a time, a man could have as many wives as he could afford to have. We don't do that anymore. Right. So it's one of those things that we always have we pick and choose what we're going to evolve within our religious beliefs. Like, okay, we're going to grow here, but we got to hold to this because it's God's unchanging word. I'm like, but so is that. But we stopped doing that because we realized that's not where we are, right, as a people anymore. Right. So it's like we're seeing that change, and how do you get two people, especially men and women, how do you get them to understand that, listen, if we're in this partnership together, I may let you take the lead on stuff, but that doesn't mean that I am owned by you, exactly, or ruled over by you. It's just like, I'm deferring to you on this, but on other things, you need to defer to your spouse, your wife, your girlfriend, or whatever. Like, right, okay, you know, baby, you're better at this. Because we look at it, most of the times, women handle the money in the family. Right. Uh-huh. That's the husband may bring home the money, say, here, baby, here's a check, do your thing. Right. The wife is the one who sits there like, this bill gets paid, that bill gets paid. Right. So you kind of balance out those things, and we balance out who does all the housework. Okay, I do the laundry, you do the cooking. So we're seeing that kind of evolve, and it's still, some people are still fighting it tooth and nail, but we'll see what happens. And I'm done. Okay.
Harold?
Well, you know what? I didn't grow up in the church. Okay. Growing up, I didn't come from a religious family. We went to church on Mother's Day, Easter, and Christmas. So I was able to discover, what's that?
They used to call them, I heard Pat Pierce used to call them CMEs, Christmas, a religious call CMEs, Christmas.
That's when we went. That's what we. So I had the opportunity to discover God for myself outside of religious doctrine. And I remember when I started going to church, I had a lot of questions that no one could answer. One of the scriptures that stuck out for me and that bothered me was the scripture that talked about slaves obey your owners. I'm like, what is going on here? And so when I think about the church, I think, like Parnell said, we pick and choose the things that we want to address and deal with, you know. And when you look at the history of that and how Christianity was used to control, enslave people, you know, and if we were to stick to that scripture, we would all still be enslaved because it said slave. Absolutely. You know, and so there is an evolution that I think that the church is resistant to have on a lot of issues and a lot of topics that needs to happen because, you know, we're not 2,000 years ago. This is 2021. Right. And I think, you know, as a culture, we change and evolve. And I think in so many ways, the church, particularly the Black church, stays stuck on a lot of things that hinder and harm us as a people.
Yes, excellent point. Jared?
I just love the word evolution, and that's where we've been lacking evolution as a people in church, outside of church, and evolving our minds. You know, how are we, you know, we're living differently. We're, you know, utilizing different technologies and different things. Your Bible may not be the actual Bible anymore. It might be on a tablet right now. Right. So as you are evolving your thinking and adapting to the way things are now, and understanding that, you know, where we were then is not where we are now, and where we're not going to be in the future. And I just don't know why people cling so hard to some of their beliefs that when they see everything else is changing, but why is the church clinging so hard to this, and why are people clinging so hard to the church? Because again, like you mentioned, Harold, you don't have to be in the church to know God. Right. So I just think people are just afraid. They're just afraid to let go. We want to be a part of something. Many people want to be a part of the church because it gives them identity. They get to, you know, be in a group of people who are like-minded. But unfortunately, there's no evolution when you're around people who think exactly how you think. And that's pretty much what religious beliefs are. Let me just be around people who think exactly how I think.
Right.
So how are we going to evolve ourselves and be okay with letting go of church a little bit?
Right.
And, you know, in finding God in other ways and other institutions as well.
Right. You know, I love the fact of the word evolution that everybody has been saying, you know, and the lack thereof that is centered around typically, you know, I would say typically the Black church, because and me as a person, I don't like saying the Black church, but I understand the purpose of it, you know, in terms of the assembly culturally, you know, in the assembling of that together, you know, historically, I mean, we know that, you know, there have been several denominational situations with church 150 years, you know, going back to quote unquote slavery and all these other type of things. Man, I think the Baptist organization goes back that far, you know, and a few other ones. However, the problem that I have with it, and I don't want to open up this box just yet, because I do kind of want to save what I want to say to next week, you know, you know, to really dig in there, because there's some layers I want to pull back, you know, but for the sake of where we are and just talking about how what has happened to men in the church by and large, and the leadership that comes from, you know, the men being in that particular church, where have we fallen short? You know, I mean, where has that fallen short? And in the church, because women have just basically taken over, you know, at the end of the day.
Well, from, you know, I was raised in the church, coming from the Bible Belt. Not a lot of men go to church.
Right. Okay, and that's a good point. So why do men not go to church? Okay, we go. Go ahead, Fisher.
Well, you know, there's a culture, you know, significance. I don't know in what region of the country you come from, but from what I have seen growing up in the United Methodist Church, I didn't see a whole lot of men in the church. I saw a whole lot of women.
Right.
And, you know, in the South, you know, it's one of those things I always scratch my head to, because, you know, there's some reality shows that I see that is from the South that really makes my blood boil. you know, and I keep referring back to the show Love and Marriage in Huntsville. If you ever catch an episode of that show that comes on the old network, it's a great representation of what the church has done to the Black family, because what it has caused the misogynistic aura of what it has pushed forth to some men who who represent that traditional conservative side of the church. It has given them all types of will to fornicate, to step outside the marriage, to treat women in a very subservient manner. And it makes women feel some type of way about themselves because they feel like they have to be. And I understand that, you know, there is a level to marriage, but, you know, some women believe they are the neck that turns the man head, you know, and nothing wrong with that. You know, if that's the way you want to do your marriage, so be it. There's no judgment here,
right?
Because love is love. If you support your husband that way, support your husband that way, but just, you know, it comes with repercussions. My grandma used to always tell us, when you give somebody power like that, just know that you have to bend all the time, because my grandma was a very single woman. She was very single. She didn't live the traditional life. Honestly, I lived with 3 women who weren't traditional in the sense of needing a man, and so I never had that father figure. I always keep saying that I never had a father figure in the home, but I always saw men in the way they saw men, which was sometimes it was either positive or negative. But in the negative sense, they always used to say, "You don't need that. I don't need a man. I don't need no man to help me to survive." But it's so funny that the church have allowed that type of behavior.
Right.
And when you see that from a young boy's standpoint, you start to believe that is the way you should live your life as a man, regardless of what denomination, regardless of race, regardless of where you come from. You believe that in the church, the man is the household. You should have the wherewithal to just go and do whatever you want to do, as long as you're not of a certain sin. Not of a certain okay.
Right.
But as long as you do whatever you want to do, you will not be crucified, you will not be talked about.
Right.
And some men have taken that to task,
Right.
and destroyed families.
Yes.
And destroyed generation of families and children and grandchildren because of the situation, that comes along with that.
Absolutely.
Well
said. Hey,
but it
well
is,
said.
I've seen that.
Exactly. You summed up a whole lot there, but which is very, very true. In its inception, and it's like the responsibility of the man, even in the church situation, has been just kind of pushed aside. And ladies, this is not to downgrade ladies at all. Okay, at the end of the day, I don't want y'all hit me up email say he talking about us. But it's just, it's just that we're trying to encourage men. I know phone calls, right?
Phone calls.
But what we're really trying to do is just trying to create a better narrative of that the responsibility not for the mature male, but yet for the male that's coming through, that the younger generation that's coming on, because we all can understand that you need some sort of relationship with your creator. Now, we're not here to tell you how to have that relationship, which is one of the things that most denominational practices try to do. Again, which is next week's show. I don't want to go there about that. But the encouragement to that as a man, that you have a rightful place in the assembly of God if that's where you choose to worship. Now, that may be again on the other side with Muslim, Islam, or whatever the other place that you choose to worship, but you do have a responsibility there. Now, the one thing, and then we'll go to the commercial of this. The one thing is that in the Islam faith is that men have never, and I'm quoting right, Islam,
the Nation
of Islam. Okay, Islam, but they really don't allow the man not to have the place, because the man is the subservient part of the whole type of the religion, and women are very subservient to the men. In that particular, which I totally don't agree with, because it kind of goes back on everything that you just mentioned, that women have no place there. Really, you're just there as I'm being very blunt, sexual tools and, all these other type of things. And that's it. You don't have a voice. You can't dress in the adornment that you should. Men can go out looking good, but you can't go out looking good. And to me, there's a huge imbalance there. And I know that they've tried to look at it that from a scriptural perspective, put women in that place. But to me, in my opinion, it's strictly wrong, at the end of the day.
But, you know, and I'm sorry for interrupting, but you know, the fact is you had some churches back in the day, and probably still to this day. I know there was a situation within the Kojic church that you used to talk to me about, where women couldn't wear red lipstick, they couldn't wear certain hairdos, and couldn't wear certain dresses, or could wear earrings and jewelry. And I used to think to myself, so what is we go to church for God to look in the heart, not what we wear on the surface. So what are you looking at that will keep you sidetracked from God? As a man, I'm like, would the red lipstick keep you away from God? Would the high heels keep you away? Because something might be wrong with you.
Thank you.
Not with that woman. It's like you blaming the young girl that you that was raped for wearing a short skirt. Which was not the issue. The issue was you looking at the short skirt in the first place. I'm just saying.
No, that ain't.
I'm just saying. But that has always been my issue. I'm like, wow.
No, very good point. Yeah, I see the nod. Jerry, you got a point on that?
No, I'm just agreeing. I'm just over here, amen.
Let the church say amen, right?
Amen.
Part do you have a point on that real quick?
Well, I had to unmute myself. Yeah, it's very interesting because I've always said that, you know, when it comes to how women are viewed by men, a lot of times, you know, there is that whole thing. Well, she shouldn't have worn that shirt. That short. Look, come on, you can say it. That shirt. That God dang it. That shirt. Say that 3 times fast. You know. But it's the whole thing. I said. But here's the thing: if you truly honor and respect women the way you say you do, she can walk around you naked and not be assaulted.
That's true. Absolutely.
You know, you don't feel that you have a right to her body just because you see it.
Absolutely.
You know, so that's a thing. And I think in not just American culture, but the world culture is that whole thing of respecting women in their own individuality and not thinking that it's just like, well, because I see it and I want it, I can take it.
Right.
You know? I've seen, you know, like the woman who was assaulted in New York a couple of weeks ago because some guy offered to buy her a bottle of wine and she was like, no, thank you, I got it. And then they attacked her and he tried to bite her eye out.
Right.
I said, this is ridiculous. So now women, we've already tell a lot of women, you know, don't speak to a guy you don't know for more than 5 minutes because guys think, oh, she wants me. I'm like, no, she's being polite and saying hello because you said hello. That don't mean anything. So now they can't even, you know, say no, thank you without being attacked because some man thinks that he owns her because he wanted her to do something that he has to respond.
Absolutely. I totally agree. Harold, you got a point on that?
No, I was just going to say, you know, I think, and I don't want to make it seem like we are bashing any religions, but I just think that so often the focus is on the wrong thing. The focus is on the wrong thing. I mean, what difference does it make if you wear pants or lipstick or, you know, what difference does that make? Well, how does that affect your character? If your hair is blue or green, you know, why is that an issue? So I think so often we focus on the wrong things and we focus on things that are familiar to us, you know. We focus on things that we know will get a reaction and we focus on things that we know that will get support. Like if I say this, I know the church is going to say amen and they're going to really be into this if I say that, you know.
Absolutely.
Just to focus on the wrong thing.
Absolutely. I totally. Did you have a point before we go to break, Jared?
I was just wondering how much of a message, you know, people really are delivering. Do they really think about what they're saying, you know, when they're delivering certain messages? And are you perpetuating toxic masculinity? Are you perpetuating, you know, some things, some caveman-like thinking, some dated thinking? Again, like you said, you're trying to get that amen and get that collection plate going in some cases. So are you just saying what needs to be said, what you feel is going to move people to in that moment? Versus what really is going to move their heart. And so then are you really doing God's work at the end of the day?
Absolutely. I totally agree. When we come back from break, we're going to finish out with this particular portion. But what I want to say, guys, is that when we come back from break, let's think about the points of solutions that we can offer men to change their ideas, and offer some disciplines, you know, and just curb their ways of action so that we can move forward as we have been created to do. You know, and to create that bond and that brotherhood. Okay. So we'll finish up with that when we come back from the break, and then we'll go into our next segment. All right. So we'll see you in a minute from the break. Hey, and we're back. Yeah. Thank you for tuning in to The Truth Behind the Truth. We are so excited about tonight. Well, I'm telling you, we got some good conversation going with our special guest, Mr. Jared Sampson. We are enjoying his words, okay? We're looking forward to being able to dig into his specialty area very shortly after we wrap up this particular part of our discussion on Men Have Voices Too, and trying to find some solutions to help all these men, brothers of brothers, okay, at the end of the day, and trying to help them just get themselves together so that we can become as a bond unit. All right. Harold, you want to take it from this point?
Oh, okay. I have to get myself off mute. Okay. So, well, one of the things I think we mentioned this before, it all just starts with self, and being comfortable and accepting of yourself and being authentic with yourself. I think, until we as individuals have the courage to first discover who we really are, I think a lot of us don't know who we really are because of how we've been programmed from religion, from our culture. Yes. And I think it starts with us doing some self-discovery and learning who we are and what we really want, and then having the courage to be that. I think Absolutely. We in this society and culture are always trying to fit in and trying to gain acceptance, where the key, I think, in life is when we really accept ourselves.
Absolutely. You totally agree. Parnell?
Yeah, I definitely second that. And I think one of the main steps is really recognizing the humanity of the people that we get involved with. Right. Especially in a romantic situation, you have to take into account that person has, like I said earlier, their needs and their desires and things that they want to be. And you have to take those into account if you're going to have a partnership. And that's what marriage is. Right. It is a partnership. That's what any relationship is. It is a partnership. Even with friends, there was a partnership when we agreed to certain things. Now, there's always usually in a group of friends, there's one pack leader, and everybody's kind of like, okay, well, we just kind of, lead, and that's how we roll. But there's still a thing of understanding, well, everybody's not going to want to do what you want to do. And relationships are all about compromise.
That's exactly.
I should say healthy relationships are all about compromise. By recognizing that, it's like, listen, I've taken the lead on the last 7 things that we've done. I'm going to step back. What do you want to do?
Absolutely.
I'm going to support you. And even being those parts of like, you know what? It's not necessarily anything that I enjoy, but because I love you and you enjoy it, I will make an effort to at least try it.
Absolutely.
Not for me going like, you know what? No, baby, you going ahead. I will see you when you get back, because that's not my thing. So you go have that time, your individual space. And we don't have to do everything together as a couple. You can have your own independent, fully ass grown life.
Exactly. Go ahead, Jared.
And I think also exploring other healthy relationships outside of that, relationships with other men. Do you have any healthy relationships with other men, be it your father, be it your brothers, your cousins? Are men talking to men? And are men letting men know it's okay to not be okay? And it's okay to not go with the flow and just accept this is normal. It's okay to treat your wife with respect or your partner with respect. And you don't have to always be on and trying to be, I'm the man, So I think just making sure we're reviewing all relationships and finding where we're deficient in the relationships with, ourselves, of course, and then other men around us, because we really learn and we kind of influence each other. Right. So we have to make sure that we're surrounding ourselves around men who are really men and not not macho, not hyper masculine. There's a difference between being a man and being macho and being all of these other things. Right. So it's really just breaking down these terms and these, boxes that men have been put in, so where we don't really get to talk and have conversations, and so show vulnerabilities and express when we're not okay with the way another man is behaving. Right. I think definitely we have to evaluate all sorts of relationships.
Gotcha. I personally would just to say that we strongly need to look at accountability and responsibility. Okay, as probably the key elements to everything that everyone has said, because accountability is where I think that the fall of man began, because he was not accountable for the action that he did. So what led to the quote unquote the downfall of man from a historical, or you want to say from a biblical perspective, okay, and then not being accountable for that action that he chose to do showed the lack of responsibility. Okay. So what I would encourage, as a whole, is to say, look at your accountability, look at your responsibility. Because if you become accountable, number one, to yourself, okay, then you will be accountable to everything else that you do. Okay.
And being honest too, because and we are human beings.
Right.
I always say until we are honest with each other, and especially men, when it boils down to what we have to deal with on a personal basis, when it comes down to sexuality, when it comes down to illness, when it comes down to some type of sensitive spot within us. Because to be in any religion, you have to be stoic, you have to be strong, and whatever your faith is. But sometimes that in itself guards people. It puts up a guard.
It does.
And within men in certain religions, it's hard to be vulnerable.
Right.
And I think that it has always been the issue with me, is the fact that, I'm going to go back to the Christian faith. Pastors that can stand behind a pulpit can tell you how to live your life.
Right.
But they don't, but in situations, and I'm just saying in their own situations, it's something totally different.
Right.
And we've had instances they're not
basically
living what they're preaching.
Right.
And we've had situations or heard stories or read stories about certain leaders in their faith who have, we have really upheld as upstanding citizens of the word and of whatever religion that you believe. And they have failed completely to their lords because they are human.
Right.
They are, they make mistakes. And I think as men of the church or whatever religion that you stand for, you have to be honest and say, I'm going through this, even though I believe in whatever spiritual being that I believe in, I have issues. I have problems. I go out and do things. I do have a drink one or twice, to get me over because I have some situations that I'm dealing with. And just being honest and being pure, being loving, being considerate.
Right.
That, especially when it boils down to children.
Right.
Because when children are in the midst, and it is one of those things that we aspire to be, we look up to, we want to be. And when we see it, it's like, okay, then if that person is that, then I have to be that. Right. It's like the barbershop thing we were talking about in the last episode. Right. We want to aspire to be you. So if you're doing something that, we see you do and people agree to it, then, that's what we aspire to be.
Absolutely.
But you have to be honest with people. And I think that's the trend that needs to be brought forth in whatever religion that you believe in.
Right.
Honesty and consideration and love, that goes a long way.
Well, you have to be, number one, is honest with yourself. And
honest with yourself.
That goes back to the fact of being accountable, because if you're honest with yourself, you're going to be accountable for your actions and the things that go forward and taking that place. We did talk about the transparency that we don't see, in men. And then once you're honest and accountable, then you become transparent. And then all of the things that we've been talking about becomes really prevalent in your life. The emotions, the need to bond, to all these other type of things that we seem to be lacking.
Yeah.
Once you get to that place, then all those things become a very, very important part of your life. And one of the things that I will say as we wrap this up is just that, men, hey, we have talked about different areas, over these past 5 weeks to get you into a place where you can be better yourselves so that you can go through and have a healthy relationship with your wife, have a healthy relationship with your fellow brother, have a healthy relationship if you're a father, have a relationship with your children and your mother, your father, and all that, and take your rightful place back in society. And there's a place that you have to do, but it comes with you starting to be transparent. Okay. It comes with you being transparent, because how can you ever draw their needs in when you are already shielded? So you've got to drop the shield. You've got to be transparent so you can draw their needs in, because number one thing, you have the solution to handle their problems or handle their situation to help them get over.
Yeah.
You would agree?
And it will help out some communities too, some same loving communities as well. If we were if that transparency was to spill over into that culture, because you notice in certain, you know, in that culture, because we are from the church, we pick up trends like that.
Right.
Mm-hmm. We guard ourselves because that's what we were taught.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And the foundations of the church is to guard and to live up to somebody else, and then, you know, push back whatever you feel.
Right.
And what happens is people, you know, are either, you know, what they would call it, they're confused about certain aspects of what you're doing because you're not being transparent, you're not being honest.
Right.
So people are, you know, they're searching you out.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm trying to get at. You know what I'm trying to get at. But it's just the fact is, honesty and, like you said, transparency, it goes a long way. Absolutely. It goes a long way.
Well, guys, this has been, I think, really, really good, you know, in terms of really trying to set some sort of a foundation. And then when we're going to dig in a little bit from Jared's perspective after we come back from a commercial and open up a different topic, but just kind of in the same room. But we want to thank you guys at this point for really, you know, finding a way to go out and bond, you know, and we want to hear from you. You know, we want to hear from you. We appreciate the women that have tuned in, you know, our great friends, Ethel, and our moms, and everything that have tuned in to give their point. But we want to hear from you, man. We want to hear that you are taking the chance and making these changes for your life so we can see a better society, so that we can see a healthier society, so we can have a healthier conversation going on about us. But anyway, we'll be right back on this commercial, and then we're going to dig into Mr. Jared. All right? We'll be right back.
Actually, it was very. We ended the party with a bang.
It was a bad night. Any female that's with me is not going to get disrespected in front of me.
It's just a choice of words. I know that you didn't come from that place, though.
The minute that it happened, he knew. We all knew he should have said it. He knew that he should have done. He should have done that.
He used the word that culturally really hits home.
I was trying to trigger him because as a young black man at 15 years old, if two boys arguing, you call them gay, homo, you better fight. Because if you don't fight, the next dude gonna do the same thing.
But you know, at some point we have to be adults and say, you know what, when you're at 15, it's not what you do. But you have to control your anger. It's a choice of words.
Who's Jesus Christ around
Oh,
here?
nobody's Jesus Christ. But I'm saying at some point you have to learn how to live your life.
Everybody makes mistakes.
But they do, and I agree with that. But I'm saying we cannot dismiss or take
You live
responsibility
so
for our
right.
actions.
It's just like, who lives that right? Who lives that righteous?
I have not had enough drinks for this conversation. I'm ready to jump overboard and take my chances with the Gators.
I think you've learned a valuable lesson. I know that you did.
I had no idea
I think we all
that
learned
that
a
word was like
lesson.
a racial slur. It is. I had no idea.
When I grew up, I was very homophobic. And I realized as I grew to be a mature man, like, you know, that was a flaw that I had because of other men around me. We say things like that to, like, ignorance. Demasculate.
Masculate, like it's like to emasculate another man. I think it happens often. The first thing to cut down someone's masculinity is to call.
But as you were saying, being homophobic, it is that way, especially in sports culture. Being in the NFL, being in the locker room, you're around just men. So you have to project, I am all man, I am heterosexual, and like that's what that every man is trying to project, because if there is any doubt, it might be viewed as weakness because they've seen that as a weakness where it's not.
But why do you think that's the case still, Jeff? Like, honestly.
Fear.
Well, I can.
Because it's not really
I'm going to shut this conversation down right now. It's something that some people live every day, that fear. It's a struggle that I myself have to deal with every single day of my life. Every single day. And had a conversation with that woman right there. And that's what connects us so much.
I've known that he's gay for years. When you've had a secret for so long, and you're finally like, this is who I am. You're raw. You're being vulnerable, and it's so scary. Everything that's out is supposed to be buttoned up and done and pretty and looked at a certain way. And so when you try to blur those lines and go outside of those lines, you know, people don't like that.
Even beyond being family, Barry shares Tamika as wife, and I'm the other husband, and to a degree I get to experience that, but that's just a borrowed life for me. That's not my life. So the fear, the hurt, the demasculization, I have to deal with that every day of my life.
As he's talking to me, I'm feeling the magnitude of the word that I use to see how it affects someone on another level.
I know that's not a word you would use about me.
Never.
What I can tell you is that although it does not offend me, because that word, I've built up a strength like no other. I have been strong.
I know. I know.
Even though Jared says it doesn't affect him or it doesn't hurt his feelings, it makes me realize that I will never use that word, think about using that word, I'll never say it again.
This is not a sign of my weakness. It's a sign of my strength. This is not a conversation I want to have. My heart moved me to speak, and I haven't had this conversation with people in my own family. So now, welcome to my family.
We love you, Jared.
Thank you.
Come on, man. You're making me cry.
Sweetie, that was amazing.
You know I love you, right?
Absolutely.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Okay. Woo.
That was powerful.
Okay, I'm trying to,
There's so much courage, so much courage in that moment.
Oh my
Did
God.
that wake you up?
That,
Oh my gosh. I'm wow. Thank you. I mean, first of all, you know, I mean, for allowing us to be a part of your world in that moment, you know, and wow, excuse me.
That's wow.
It was tough in the moment to do it, and that was all authentic. That was all the things that we just talked about. Transparency coming to the surface. Years of just being who I am and living my truth, but not really having an opportunity to share that.
Yeah.
And so by, I guess, the way the universe works, it was a conversation that wasn't meant for me to have with my family years before and friends years before. It was meant for that moment. And it just came out how it came out, raw, unfiltered, emotional, cleansing. You know, there were so many things that happened. And that was about 3 years ago. So the growth that I've had since then has just been phenomenal. And when you allow people to see your vulnerabilities, your flaws, your insecurities, your fears, you're the one who's going to come out better once you rid yourself of all of that doubt in other people's stuff. You know, a lot of that, you know, that kept me from speaking out publicly or just with my family, at least, was other people's stuff.
Right.
You know?
I mean, wow. I mean, to be in that position. I mean, like you said, it was just raw in the moment, but to be in that position to have so many different avenues, and typically being surrounded by the heterosexual community that was there, you know, at that particular moment. I think that it was such a beautiful time to for those men and those women to recognize the faults within themselves, you know, at the same time. And I believe that you became a healing source. It was a major healing source for you, but you became a major healing source for them. You know, and any time that somebody can recognize their faults, you know, in the midst of the element of truth, wow. Woof, I'm sorry.
And I think that's powerful when we ourselves are vulnerable, we allow other people to be. So until you open up, and that's the thing where everyone's afraid. I'm sure everybody on that swamp boat, because that was weird. We were on the swamp boat. But everybody there probably had something that they would need to, you know, to get out and to free themselves of. And then that makes a safe space. When you do it, other people then can come into that safe space and realize, you know, and to me, like we were talking about church, that's what church is supposed to be, right? It's supposed to be that safe space where you bring your good, bad, and ugly. Right. You know, so why can't people come and be, you know, whoever they are and show up however they are and leave that space changed, right? Versus having to constantly, you shouldn't leave the church the same way you came in the door, and you shouldn't leave, you know, spaces that are truly of God and healing and safe spaces. You should not leave the same way you came in.
Absolutely.
You know?
So Jared, after that episode aired, what was the reaction from people, your family and friends? What was their reaction?
I'll say this: it's sometimes not what you do, but how you do it and how you say it. In that moment, I held people accountable. So because of the way I presented it, and even though it was a raw emotion, I still, held some type of control. I was holding people accountable. They saw that a lot of the things that I was going through was as a result of them. They probably felt some form of guilt. So I was literally met with nothing but love. And I remember even a tweet came out after that, and it said something to the effect that, wow, a Black gay man just came out on national TV and was met with nothing but love. So it was, I did not see one negative comment. I did not see one negative word said. I did not hear anything negative. It wasn't brought to me, because again, if you bring that to me after that moment, then you again need to check yourself and look at what's going on, what's wrong with you.
Right.
If you got anything negative out of that or felt some kind of way about that, then, so it was nothing but love. Actually, because of that, I also received the New Orleans Human Rights Campaign Award because of the way in which I opened up and shared that. So they presented me with an award, and it's not about awards and about anything like that, but it made me feel good to know that this personal moment that I shared was recognized as being as difficult as it was. It was very difficult to open up to that degree. I mean, crying and, it was a moment that happened that I always say, and that's why I'm having this conversation with you all tonight, is that I didn't want that to end in that moment. It wasn't about just being on TV or having that, moment. Mm-hmm. It had, that conversation had to continue so that other people can, again, feel safe and feel, seen and heard and know that it's okay. You don't have to do it like I did it, but you can do it and you can get through it. And if I can do it in this public space, you can do it with your best friend, your mom, your dad, your church members, whomever it might need to be. And, again, when you're doing it, hold them accountable for how they make you feel.
Yeah.
You didn't make yourself feel less than or, unsure or fearful. Mm-hmm. Society did. So make them understand that.
Yes. I love that. I mean, Pernell, what were you gonna say?
Oh yeah. So what I loved most about that moment was homeboy coming over. I love you, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was just like that guy. I'm getting choked about that. That was just
and that's Barry. Barry is the clip doesn't really set up the word. There was a word. So Barry was defending his wife, going back to some of the conversations we had about how men show up, and he was defending his wife. There was a situation where someone was having words with his wife, and so in his I guess quest to defend her, words were exchanged. He called the gentleman by the F word. And then that perpetuated things, knowing that I, was dealing with, my own sexuality and, and just trying to find ways to show up sometimes with that group. So that's where that conversation started. And what kind of provoked me to speak was that we have I don't really know if they showed everything, but you have Barry mentions that he didn't know that word was like the N word to Black people. Mm-hmm. And of course, people can talk about how we reclaim that, and then sometimes even in the gay community, we reclaim the F word. So it's debatable on if the word is offensive or not. But in that case, they were talking about him recognizing how offensive the word is, and then we had on the panel, I'll call it, we had some of our Caucasian cast members who were talking about how that like just people talking about the impact of this word. I'm like, that word impact. The N word, the F word, that impacts me. Mm-hmm. So I am only the one who can really speak to how that makes you feel, when those words are used in those negative ways. So, but it was nothing but love. It the cast was, it was just an eye-opening experience for everybody. I think a healing moment.
And it's a very interesting thing that he says that, because I know there is an entire generation that separates gay, I'm saying it, from faggot. Faggot is a separate thing than, he's gay, but so-and-so, that's it's a hard to kind of put it into there, but they kind of like the N-word and Black people. Just when I hear like white people and Asian people and Latino people calling each other N-word, I'm like, really? We're doing that? And I wish Black people, yes, I'm gonna say it, like, I wish Black people would stop using that word.
Absolutely.
Because I remember, back in my day, that was something that we only said when it's just us.
Amen.
Right.
Amen.
Favorite to us calling, that was that's when you're in the in group, you can use those things because in a defamatory way. But seeing that, let's skip ahead. But seeing him come to you and the other gentleman also being like, yeah, I love you, scores to the point that for so long, there's been a reluctance for straight men and gay men or bisexual men to openly respect and love one another, or say that to one another. It's like, oh, you're friends with a gay guy, you must be gay too. It's like, no.
Right.
It's just such a small part of who this person is.
Right.
He's on my team, or we work together and we get along together, and I, got a great sense of humor. It says who I have sex with and who he has sex with has nothing to do with our friendship.
Right. That's beautiful. Well said.
Do you feel like sometimes people feel like they'll be guilty by association?
Right.
Right. Well, society has, I know, Harold, you had a point, but society has perpetuated that idea as a guilt by association. It rolls over into our criminal justice system and everything else, because you are around something, that means that you are part of something. And you could be the solution that's pulling somebody out of a situation, or making them better. But again, guilt by association, or what people have seen. and society has just poured that over in us. So I think that puts on those defensive mechanisms that we have, that we don't want to be around it or in that gathering. I mean, you think about it. I mean, and just kind of opening up this area of it, just as a sense as exploratory things that you did as a child, okay, trying to figure out who you were. And it doesn't mean that you were defined by a sexual behavior or whatever, but you may have played with girls more than you played with boys. Yes, at the end of the day, it didn't mean that you were going to be gay, at the end of the day, you just may have been found more in common in terms of, in conversation or whatever the case may be.
Maturity level. I mean, they say girls are more mature than boys. So what if you're mature for your age and you just maturity wise, so society needs to stop giving people, boys don't do this, girls do this, boys, that's part of the problem. And I think, growing up, a lot of that stuff had been embedded in me, and I didn't even know that it was impacting. I went on and, worked and did all the things, accomplished all the things. But, and I kept that, like you mentioned, Parnell, that was just a little nugget of who I am. The person who I really am is the one that you love, and I'm showing up and having a good time, and, we're just getting things done. That's who I am. But you're going to take that one thing. So I kept that one thing that I knew would maybe influence whether or not I got those other opportunities or had those other, connections and friendships and things like that. So I just held that back. You shouldn't have to hold back 1% for fear that 1% is going to define who you are.
Right. And that's been a scare for people for long as that 1%. That 1% is a thing that has held the grip on so many people for so long,
It still does.
And it still does. I mean, it still really does. And it really stems from our belief systems, and then those belief systems typically come from the spiritual side, which we will dig into next week, of that, and why the things are, and then why at this point that we are in a position where we have PTSD from religion. Okay, because there's a lot of post-traumatic syndrome that people carry around with them that they need to be healed from. And
I'm sorry for interrupting, but it's just, I was thinking about when you were saying, when it comes down to church, but, since I've been, on the websites of social media, and I have seen talk about what is Black and what is European and what Europeans have taught, Africans about, sexuality. And I always think to the fact that, well, I did not know personally what my sexuality was. I just know that it was a natural thing. So nobody had to show me or tell me who I was attracted to, who I liked, or what I liked to, what I was geared towards. Or, the fact is that people want to play the blame game, that they don't want to, say, well, I'm not accountable for this lifestyle, if they want to call it, a cultural lifestyle that somebody has imposed on me through slavery, through whatever it is, because of the fact that I don't know what it is. I think for some strange reason, they want to believe chemically certain cultures are not in depth into acting or doing things of such. When that is not the case. Stuff like that has been going on for centuries, in certain, civilizations. It's just the fact that people are so ignorant to believe that, oh, I can't be that way because of who I am and where I come from and this and that. And I say to myself, that is crazy.
Right. Well,
that's crazy.
Well, I know, Harold, you had a point. I just want to say, one of the things that belief system does is for people that it allows them an escape. You see what I'm saying? So I get to escape from this whole idea, or I get to escape in this area. So belief system really doesn't assess that mode for so really what happens is you find a way to escape and not really deal with the issue. You see what I'm saying? You escape to this, the church world blames everything on which we don't aspire, but talk about the world. Well, no, they blame it on the devil. The devil this, devil that, devil this, devil this. Okay, devil ain't got nothing to do with you, do with the decision you made. Okay, that was you. Okay. It was you at the end of the day. You went down, you made the decision and calculated right here, and it facilitated this way, right up by your own hands. So let's stop with the devil's.
And do you think sometimes people point fingers at other people's stuff, so they don't have to look at theirs or to get the attention off of them? I feel like a lot of it is like, oh, look what they did, because I don't like gay people, I don't like this, I don't like that. because you're trying to just cover up and get the attention off of you for whatever you're doing.
Absolutely. There's one thing that we brought out on a previous show. Now, I know I keep cutting you off here. I know you got a point. The one thing is that we said on the previous shows that what you don't like about someone else is what you really don't like about yourself. At the end of the day, okay? So it's about self-identity straight across the board. I know we were talking about men and all this, but it's self-identity straight across. Women, everybody. That's your problem. That's our problem, at the end of the day. And when you see that, it should be a red flag for you to start addressing that particular issue that you have within yourself. But most of the time, we don't, because you know what? We want an escape from it. We don't want to deal with it. We find a way to get out of it, instead of pinpoint. But go ahead, Earl, I'm sorry.
No, it just makes me think about one of the lies that we were all told as children. And that lie was sticks and stones may break my bones.
Wow.
Yes. Words and that was such a lie. That was such a lie. And we know the power of words. We have been the recipients of words, and we know how those negative words have made us feel. And so for us to use words that are so dehumanizing to someone, is very unfortunate, but it speaks to the unhealed trauma as a culture that we have. We have a lot of unhealed trauma.
Right.
Hurt people.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
A lot of hurt people go into these religion, facilities just to find out what it is. Yeah, to pray it away. And the fact is that you can't always pray it away.
No,
you have to. You got to be like Iyanla.
You got to deal with it.
You got to put it out there. You got to deal with it. You have to, heal that wound.
You got to deal with it. You can't
I'm
pray sorry, the wound away. Because every time you pray about it, guess what? It's right there in your face again. Okay. You can say you left it at the church, but guess what? When you walked out the door, it's right there again. Okay. And until you deal with it, and then the change comes about. And again, like we started in the last segment, it's about being accountable. Okay, at the straight up. If you're not accountable, you won't be responsible for it. At the end of the day. I know we're running a little bit over time here. Jared, we want to get this last point for you to to wrap up with, and the points where you want to leave with us, with this. And you know what, man? If you are free, to next week, okay. It's like everybody keeps coming back next week, because what we're digging into, I think that you really will have some very powerful insight. Really, as we're starting to tear these layers back about what religion has done to the Black culture, and then yes, we're going to attack Christianity, people. So I'm sorry if you don't want to like it, you don't like it, okay? But these are things that you need to know about what Christianity has done to a group of people that could be triumphant, be multimillionaires, be very, very successful in life, and not really seeing their true essence, and not knowing that they're enough, and not knowing that they are authentic. I'm sorry, I'll go ahead real quick.
No, I was just going to say, JB, this is such an important conversation because I remember over the summer, it seems like I kept seeing stories of young boys in particular who were identified as gay, who had committed suicide. There was one kid who was 10 years old.
Yes.
And this is just such an important conversation to have because I think parents don't realize, even with their own ignorance, with their own unhealed trauma, what they're doing to their child and how they make their child feel unseen, unworthy, and so this is an important conversation I think we need, to not end here.
All right. Okay. Great. Absolutely. Go ahead, Jared.
No, I was just saying, that's a great point. Unfortunately, because now we see so many more things and kids have access to social media so they can bully. Parents may not know they're being bullied online or in school. And, it's just unfortunate that, until we start seeing more representation and positive representation in ways. And that's why it was important for me to continue that conversation, not just to leave it there, is because there are so many, traumatic situations where parents are perpetuating the stereotypes that these kids have to, deal with, and they can't deal with. They don't know how. They're not equipped to deal with it.
Right.
So how do these kids, handle being bullied or even sexually traumatized? We don't know what's going on behind the scenes with some of those, kids. So you got to really make sure we show up for the young boys. And again, more of us need to be open as men, as gay men, to show people that there are other people out there and that you can, show up and live your life the best way you know how, even if your parents don't see it, even if your friends don't see it.
Right. Absolutely. You know, one of the points that I know we've got, I know we're on, I keep saying we're running over time. This is our show. We can run to the next 2 hours if we wanted to. This is our network, okay? But I do want to bring up real quick, and then she was actually on our show. She's going to be back on. Tara Cult has an excellent, you can go to the Truth Behind the Truth page, guys. There's a book called Real Talk. Okay, and it deals with LGBTQ. I get all the letters mixed up in it, but it really, she opens up such a great dialogue as to what we're talking about. Very, very powerful book. Okay, you can see her picture and everything on the Truth Behind Truth page. I encourage you guys to go get that book. Okay, it deals with every area of that, the questions that you may have in this area that we're talking about, and she deals with from a religious standpoint of view. She digs into that, and she has explored every area to make a sound, whole, a person moving into what they feel and they know their destiny and making them authentic. It's a really good, powerful book. So I wanted to bring that plug back out there about it again, you know, in it.
Because it's Black History Month, those who don't understand should watch the documentary of Where's Langston?
Oh, yeah. Okay, exactly.
Yeah, most definitely. Exactly. That's a powerful piece of work.
I know we're over time, but we need to do our Black History Moment real quick. I mean, so just take maybe a minute and talk about somebody that has been very powerful to you. Actually, you mentioned who I was going to mention about you was Langston Hughes, and since I'm running my mouth, I'll go ahead and say, you know, one of the things about Langston Hughes to me was very so powerful. And most people, even though he was such a prolific writer, and many people that embraced his poetry didn't really understand the essence that he was talking about in the midst of his poetry. Yeah. You know, and a lot of his poetry dealt with the Harlem Renaissance and the same-sex relationships that had to go on in the underground area of the Harlem Renaissance, okay, which is a very, very powerful point that he did. If you ever get a chance to go and go and look back at and read some of his stuff, you can see where I'm talking about. And then there is a documentary that has done called Looking for Langston. Looking for Langston is a very, very powerful. It's been done. It's probably came out in 1989, I believe that it was. Okay, but it was a very, very documentary that was really put together and dealt with the underground area of what he had to deal with and what was going on in the Harlem Renaissance during that time, in the early time period. Yeah, but that's my Black History Moment by Langston Hughes. All right, who's next?
Billie Holiday. I was watching a documentary this morning based on her life story, and you know, the movie with Audrey Day, the United States versus Billie Holiday, and the story of her life is sad, but to be honest with you, it's triumphant for a woman to have lived a life in such oppression in her lifetime, and to have to rise above it through song and through satin and gardenias is. It's something to just like, oh my God, it's like, it makes tears flow. And let me tell you, as a young person, people, say you're too old to be this young, but one of her albums, Lady in Satin, was the last album she had did before she passed. And if you're not a big Billie Holiday fan, and vocally you would not understand it, but I treasured that album because I was going back and forth to school listening to it, and being a gay boy in the South in Alabama was rough. But I found a connection with her music, with the message, with the sadness in her voice, through the fact that if this woman, as much as she went through racism and drug uses and the FBI coming always after her, the way she rose above it and she connected through song, it made me feel that I could rise above my own oppression, that I could grow and be a better person and to keep striving and to keep moving. Because, life is hard, but it's the way you compartmentalize. That's your favorite word. The way it's how you compartmentalize and to keep going. It makes you a better and stronger person. So big ups to Billie Holiday. And I want to see that movie too. They say it's a very good movie.
Absolutely. Pardon?
Oh, I've been watching that series Amend on Netflix that Will Smith is hosting.
Okay.
And so Frederick Douglass was the name that popped up in my head. It was basically just for him to have been a slave and escaped, and finally have gotten north and dealt with, like, okay, even though now I am here in the north and I am quote unquote free, I'm still a fugitive for the law. At any time, somebody could have grabbed him and taken him right back into slavery. But the courage that he still got up and spoke publicly, became this big proponent of the abolition of slavery, despite the risk to his life and safety, was just an inspiration that he even, spoke out against Abraham Lincoln. He'd be like, yo, you got to do this, man. My people need to be free. And like his condemnation of celebrating the 4th of July, I said, what is that to me? To celebrate this day of independence when my people were slaves. What is that to me?
Amen.
And I know a lot of people now had an issue with celebrating the 4th of July. Now I'm like, listen, that's our history. That's our holiday to celebrate. Right. We have earned the right.
Absolutely.
If anybody has earned the right to celebrate, Black people in this country have right
so
to
true.
Celebrate a day of independence.
So true. Yes. Jared?
I'm going to defer to Harold.
Okay.
So the person I thought about was James Baldwin. And, from James Baldwin, one of the things that I learned, in spite of all of the inequities and discrimination, James Baldwin taught us that everyone is your equal.
Yes.
Everyone is your equal. And he has this quote that I love. He says that your crown has already been bought and paid for.
Yes, I love that.
All you have to do is put it on.
Wow.
That always encourages me.
Yes.
When I'm feeling down, I think about that. That always helps lift me up when my spirits are down or I'm discouraged about something. I think about James Baldwin.
Yes.
Wow. Great. Thank you. Jared?
That's why I figured somebody was going to say James Baldwin, so I wanted to, before I use that one.
Okay.
Because I have a couple in mind. I'm going to do 2 if it's okay, but just
sure.
Absolutely.
So
Bayard Rustin.
Yes.
Dr. King, who knew that he learned a lot of the practices and implemented things that he learned from a gay, openly gay Black man.
Yes.
So I think that is a lot to say. A religious man, right? Going back to that, a religious man who had a gay Black man who influenced him in the ways in which the nonviolence and the ways in which he spoke and addressed the crowd to get things done. And he could not be, he was older than Dr. King, and he could not be the leader of the movement because of his openly gay Black self showing up in the world. But again, that 1%, that little 1% nugget kept him from possibly being, the man named who's on every street and everything. And not to take anything away from Dr. King, of course. He was a powerful man and needed and definitely, in the absence of Bayard Rustin and being able to take that leadership role, we definitely needed someone to do that. But I just think that was amazing. And then one more, so that was the civil rights movement. And then Marsha P. Johnson, who, a lot of gay white folks need to acknowledge and, understand. So we have a gay man leading the civil rights movement behind the scenes, and then a outspoken Black transgender woman who is leading the movement for gay liberation. So I just feel like that's amazing. I know that Black folks have their hands in all sorts of movements and liberation.
Absolutely. Well, the beautiful part about this is where it shows that you're so into. I know you want to get into more, but we got to wrap this up.
I want to make a point, but I hear what you're saying. We got to go wrap it up.
I'm hungry.
Y'all know this past my bedtime.
I can't reach it.
Oh, I know, right? But I did want to say this is that to show that you are so much in the flow with what has happened this evening, and we thank you for that. Is that our first Black History Movement was on Bayard Rustin? So he was our first focus, for us starting out, our series with this. So we thank you for being in the flow. Whatever. Yes. So I do want to ask you: are you free to be with us next week, or do you have some of the other plans? Yeah.
Let me check my Rolodex. Go back, old school.
Okay.
Rolodex, and I'll get back with you. But more than likely, I should be.
Okay.
40. Look. 40, and I feel good about it.
All right. Guys, we want to thank you so much. We want to thank our special guest tonight, and hopefully he will be able to make it back with us. So when we dig, and I'm sure you guys saw the commercial about PSTD of religion. Boy, we're going to dig in. We didn't want to go there tonight. We almost did, but we're really going to dig in. The next few weeks is going to be dealing with that, because we want to free you guys from religion. We want freedom to be that. The thing that Christ spoke about most of all was your freedom. Okay, so if you're not free, there's a problem. All right. All right, guys, we love you. We thank you for tuning in tonight. Hey, this has been another awesome night. But once again, I want to thank our special guest, Mr. Jared. I call everybody Dr. Jared, okay? So now you've been a physical doctor tonight, all right? Thank you for being with us tonight, guys. Hey, it's been awesome. Harold, we love you, sending you to Parnell, 2-hour conversation this week, hopefully. And Harold, I know we got some business to talk about, this week, so we'll be getting into that. And then, of course, we'll win off camera. We'll do some other things talking with Jared as well. It's about some other stuff, okay? But guys, we love you. Thanks for tuning in tonight. Thanks for tuning in to what? The truth behind the truth. Yeah. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.